We are through day number 2 of the Blast World Finals. If you missed the action live, the biggest story of the day is NAVI, the best team in the world, have exited this tournament in last place. Faze have exercised some big game demons, taking down the juggernaut NAVI squad in 3 games, which means the field is now wide open and this tournament is up for grabs for anybody. Following that, the other big story of the tournament, Astralis continues to look much better than we all thought they would. They manhandled Mouz 2-0, booking a semi-final appearance later this week. After that, we had Team Liquid taking on Vitality, Vitality missing Mezzi throughout this tournament, and somehow still, through the power of Zywoo and Flames, they overcome Liquid, a disappointing loss for Team Liquid yet again, making them the second team to go home in this event. And then we rounded out the day with G2 taking on Team Spirit, and despite the best efforts from Donk and Shiro, G2 ran them down with timely fragging from all of their big names, including an amazing series from Hunter. While they still have a lot of issues, G2 continues to prove that firepower may trump all to some extent in CS2. And that means we have a lot to recap, so let's not waste any more time. Before we get started, make sure you guys leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm. Also, top link in the description, our community Discord is now available. So make sure you drop on by, say hello, and come hang out with me and other members of this great community we're starting to build here. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the video. Alright, like I said, we're starting off by talking about NAVI taking on Faze. Obviously, NAVI have been dominating this matchup for quite a while. Faze's struggles as of late have been well documented on this channel, and going into this matchup, Faze have not beaten a top 10 opponent in several months. And even though NAVI stumbled the first day of this event against Astralis, they're still the best team in the world. If they're going to stumble, you would expect them to figure it out and come back in the next match even stronger. And honestly, it looked that way to start out. They walk out onto Inferno and destroy Faze. I mean, there's no proper way to put it here. It was a beating, 13-6. They start out on the CT side, and listen, I've criticized NAVI's Inferno plenty of times. It is definitely an issue within their map pool. But those issues are squarely on the T side. Their CT side is arguably one of the best in the world, and it's because of how this roster is constructed. They have so much fragging all the way down that there's essentially no holes. Even Alexi B does really well at rotating and uses utility to support both B and A. So if you can't break into these bomb sites, if you can't hit shots better than NAVI, you're locked out. And that's exactly what happened to Faze here. Outside of winning the pistol round and the second round after, Faze failed to win 2 consecutive rounds through the rest of the half. I mean, listen, sometimes it can be pretty lazy to just point at the numbers and be like, that's the reason they lost. However, you look at the numbers for this game, and yeah, that's the reason Faze lost. Rain, great game, no notes. But literally everybody else was awful. Couldn't get anything going. And by the time we swapped sides into the second half, there's just simply no time left. NAVI have a commanding lead, they win the pistol round on the T side, that gives them the early momentum. Faze only get 2 rounds, they were good 2 CT rounds admittedly, but it's not enough. There's no time to build your economy, start working your way back into the game. That's the problem with MR12 sometimes. If you fall behind early, you can't mount a comeback nearly as easily. And for NAVI, they simply looked night and day compared to what they showed us yesterday versus Astralis. JL and Wonderful were much more involved, getting their usual impact. JL continues to be one of the best B-side defenders in the world. And yeah, not much else to say. This is the NAVI we have seen dominate the entirety of this season. Which certainly makes it very odd that NAVI seemed to disappear between games 1 and 2, because for the rest of this series, NAVI played noticeably worse and frankly kind of capitulated both of these games to Faze. All credit to Faze because they capitalized fully on this opening. They did their job. But it takes 2 to tango here. NAVI played dreadful in both of these remaining maps. Mirage, their best map, they have now lost 4 out of the last 5 times on, and every single time it has been a very one-sided stomp to much worse competition. They're not losing the Mirage to G2 or Vitality, which you could forgive because those are great Mirage teams, some of the best teams in the world. No, they've lost to Furia, they've lost to Astralis, and now they lose to Faze. And in every single time, it's been quite soundly at that, which is really worrying for their map pool. If Mirage suddenly becomes a problem as we head into the major, that could be a huge issue for NAVI's ability to compete. What's bizarre is that it came down to a second half collapse, but honestly the warning signs were there in the first half. Alexi B and Bit were the only players getting significant production on their T side. Emma, Wonderful, and JL all combined for one more kill than Alexi B had by himself. And despite that, NAVI still managed to win the half pretty decisively, and it was only because of the clutch play by Alexi B and Bit that this game wasn't even worse of a blowout. They take that 7-5 lead into the second half, and like looking into a mirror and seeing Team Liquid, suddenly they can't close out this game against Faze. Faze make another Mirage Miracle comeback, only allowing NAVI to win one CT round on their way to victory. And some of these rounds boil down to NAVI just getting run over. Round 15, it's a very simple A execution from Faze. Rain just runs at them, gets 2 quick picks, money's too low for NAVI, they're forced into an immediate save. In the very next round, once again, it's Rain leading the charge, goes out into mid, swings, getting 2 uncontested picks for free, immediately putting NAVI on the back foot 5v3. And credit to NAVI because JL and Alexi combine to bring this round back. Alexi B gets 2 great picks with the FAMAS on the solo B hold, bringing it to a 2v2 post-plan situation. If NAVI can get this kind of conversion, it's so meaningful to their economy, to the momentum, to the morale. And it comes down to Brokey in a 1v2, and he ends up getting the 1v1s he needs. He wins his gunfights. The swings aren't timed out well, there's no leftover utility because the money's low, NAVI are unable to convert it. And then the nail in the coffin for Mirage is the very next round. Rain once again walks out for the 3rd consecutive round straight into mid, as in getting 2 uncontested picks, decides, you know what, I'll take a 3rd. And at this point, NAVI are shell-shocked. It's clear that their heart is just not in the rest of this series. We move on to Ancient, and Ancient feels like once again, the surrender flags are up. NAVI are ready to go home. 6 straight grand finals, that's good enough. Let's take a break going into the major. I'm just going to let some of this Ancient footage run in the background and riff about NAVI for a minute or 2 and then talk about Faze and then move on. Is this a bad result for NAVI? Yes. Obviously, you would like to see them add another trophy or another deep run to their resume for the year. There's no doubt about that. But let's consider the context of the broader schedule. As I already talked about in my last recap, NAVI are running ragged. The schedule's been very hectic, and going to all these grand finals means they get very little time in between tournaments. There's just a certain breaking point. You can see that NAVI are tired, they need a break, they need to reset, and frankly, this was the right time for it to happen. There's nothing else after this. There are just the RMRs, there is just the major. And if you're NAVI, there is nothing else in this year that matters more than a good placement at the major. So by bowing out early here, yeah, it sucks now. But even Alexi B covered this in his post-game interview. It gives them time to reset, rest, boot camp as much as they possibly can, and come back stronger going into the major. And I'm going to add one interesting little note that Banks brought up on the broadcast. NAVI have gone win-loss, win-loss, win-loss in all of their tournament runs up until this point. And their last Grand Finals appearance was one they lost. Considering they didn't make a Grand Finals here, that means they are due, in theory, to win their next tournament, which would be the major. Will it happen? I don't know. For Faze, yeah, this has got to be a great feeling win, dude. First time you've taken down a top 10 opponent in what feels like 10,000 years, and sometimes the best thing that could happen to a roster that's slumping is to just see that W one time in an important moment. I'm still very worried about Robs and Brokey and their inconsistencies, but man, listen, it could just be like Aaron Judge in the playoffs. Sometimes you just gotta see that ball leave the stadium to make things work. Any and all fielding errors that might occur afterwards, you'll just deal with it as it goes. Moving on to our next series, we had Astralis taking on Mouz. Now, I find myself at a crossroads when talking about Astralis right now. As you see, I am a pure hater. I'm a D1 Hall of Fame first round draft pick hater. It's what sustains me. It's how I get out of bed in the morning. It's what I think about at night before I go to bed. And I really, really want to be an obligate hater on Astralis no matter what, because the organization is run by shitty people. The way they handled the Cadian move at Blast Fall Finals was ridiculous. Not to mention the overarching narrative with Stown and Yabby and them joining this team in the first place. So, I really want to just default to discrediting everything this team does. But here's the thing about being a hater. You have to respect when game is game. And god damn it, these are the best 2 series Astralis has played all year to start this tournament. There's no way to get around that. They destroyed NAVI, they destroyed Mouz. These are 2 of the best teams in the world. Astralis haven't been close to contending for a trophy all year. These are two amazing results for them. And there's no doubt, I like Cadian as an in-game leader, and it's clear that his leadership has made the difference for this team. Everybody is playing better. Yabby, Stown, Stare, Device is still incredible, but he's getting the most out of his pieces, and even though he's not a good individual player, and he's also fucking injured at this event, that has not stopped Astralis from looking better as a machine. With Navi out of the event and Vitality playing with a stand-in, it is not a stretch to say that Astralis has, at worst, a great chance to make a Grand Finals appearance here. They might be the best team in this field to win the tournament right now. It's probably them or G2. So I respectfully tip my hater cap towards Astralis. Good job, you guys played great today. That means I will direct all of my hater attention towards Mouz. What do you mean you only won 2 rounds on the CT side? Over the last 3 months, the CT side has been your best half on this map. You guys have been one of the best Vertigo teams all year, and you let Astralis just walk all over you. I mean, look at these numbers, dude. Oh my god. Brolin, what happened? You were so good yesterday, Brolin! I mean, some of these first half rounds were ridiculous. Astralis was just running these boys over. Device is just a lot like Nico in the respect that he may be old, but god damn it, when he chooses to, he's still a top 5 player in the world, if not maybe better, because when you're one of the best players to ever do it, you can still tap into that at will. And then you have rounds like round 6 here, where, you know, Cadian gets picked, Shuhi immediately gets traded out. We waste a little bit of time, Astralis rotate back towards B, Xerxen creeps up towards the stairs, he gets 1 pick, he gets immediately traded. Jimmy gets a pick, immediately traded. Torzy gets a pick, immediately traded. And just barely does Stare miss the final pick on Brolin for Mouz to finally get on the board, but the point still stands. Where are the trade kills from Mouz? They just gave Astralis a bunch of 1v1s. The trades favored the T's. The spacing by Mouz there, and yeah, there were smokes on the site, I get that. But the way they ended up split up just allowed Astralis to just work their way gradually into the site. And only at the very end, in the 1v1, did Mouz manage to pull it out. And the problem is, they just won after losing 5 straight. But that round cost them everything. Now their loss streak is broken. They have to rebuy into this round, and because Astralis won every other round of this half so far, their economy's fine. If Astralis win this round, Mouz are now trapped in economic hell, their money is broken, they have nothing for the round after. Listen, I still believe in this Mouz lineup a lot. I know a lot of people are expecting them to break up, thinking that this is the ceiling for them, but I look at the pieces on paper and I just don't agree with that. I think they have the talent to be a top 3 team in the world consistently to win trophies, but they continue to fall short in the weirdest moments against teams they should be beating. And I do think that does give some credence to a point. I think it was Kassad or Maui Snake made on a recent podcast that Mouz need like a veteran element. They're all very young. Brolin may have been playing for quite a few years already, but he's only 22. You know what this team really needs is somebody like a NAVI, a Rain, an older, tenured player who's done it on the biggest stages, won the biggest tournaments, and can help settle this team down when things start to get away from them. Shuhi, to his credit, for as good of an in-game leader as he is still relatively inexperienced, and that seems to be what's holding this team back from taking the next step. That, and you have elements like Torzy and Xerxen who can be inconsistent series to series. But I mean, again, the raw talent on this team is good enough. But then series like this prove that they're still lacking that last element. Moving on to Nuke, Mouz had a strong start to the half. They got a lot of rounds early, but they failed to close out any momentum heading into the second half, and it came down to a lot of close, winnable rounds where simple mistakes really started to add up, even when Mouz had huge advantages. Here on round 9, they're on a low buy, they get a hope and a prayer off an amazing Tech 9 shot from Brolin that gives them the ability to start maneuvering outside. Cadian, with his broken elbow, is maneuvering around the big garage smokes, but hasn't been spotted out yet. He backs up into big garage and, oh man. Listen, we all do it, but at the end of the day, you're a pro player. Xerxen, you have to have the discipline to clear everything. You know people lurk around these smokes outside. That's very common. You have to check big garage thoroughly. Cadian is full flashed. He was dead to rights if you just look to your right. Instead, Cadian gets 2 kills, which gives Astralis a big window back into this round. And yes, Mouz do a great job of fighting it back, but once again, it comes down to Mouz not being able to close out rounds. Device with an excellent 1v2 from Heaven, in a round that Mouz should have won handily. I really don't have much else to say. This wasn't an elimination series. All this was doing was deciding seeding, who gets to go to the semis, who gets to go to the quarters. Mouz still have time to make a great run in this tournament. But dude, Astralis are playing very confident, very comfortable, and much more cohesive than at any other point in this lineup that we've seen. And that's scary. If this is not just an anomaly and Astralis maintains this form, they're going to be a threat. And that changes a lot for the landscape of this tournament and the run-up to the major. Moving on, let's talk about Team Liquid taking on Vitality. And, obviously, I love Team Liquid. I really like Twist and NAF. They're two of my favorite players of all time. So I have a lot of time for this roster. I think Ultimate has had points, especially when he first shown up, that have shown a lot of promise. JKS has done his job. Yekindar lately has looked better. Specifically in this tournament, I think he's played a lot more soundly. Normally, going against Vitality, this would be an uphill battle for Liquid. There's no doubt about that. But playing with Jax, this was Liquid's opportunity to take a big win. Now, just like we talked about yesterday, ZywOo is still ZywOo, so there are no free games. Liquid gutted out a ballsy victory on Anubis 13-10. Liquid, despite all their issues, have been one of the best Anubis teams in the world over the last 3 months, going 10-2 on it. So this was a great win. They played well as a unit. They did really well to battle back on their CT half to keep it 6-6 to start. They looked great on the T side, really neutralizing the economy of Vitality, keeping them away from ops out of ZywOo's hands. There was one scare halfway through where ZywOo went crazy with the Deagle on A site, but when it comes down to the clutch, there are few players in the world you would rather have behind the AK than Twist, a great 1v2 by the captain to win that round. And from there, Liquid persevered through some very strong late rounds from the Vitality defense, but at the end of the day, playing without Mezzi leaves them with a lot of holes. Despite ZywOo and Flames playing really well around each other, especially on the A site, Liquid played smart around their rotates, they took space when they needed to, they held on, they took an early 1-0 series lead. Which at this point is starting to become a harbinger of doom for this team, because apparently when they go up 1-0 on better teams than them, they somehow forget who they're playing in the subsequent 2 games, because once again, Liquid have conceded a reverse sweep in the back of a series. I hate to do it, I hate to do this, but play the pain music. Liquid, you have earned this right from me on this day. I never thought I'd have to do this to you guys. Why would you make me do this? But 13-3 on Dust 2, just 3 rounds on Dust 2. Listen, normally, I think that blowout would happen if Vitality were at full strength. ZywOo was arguably the best Dust 2 player we have ever seen. So yeah, I would expect Vitality to be very strong on that map and to dominate Liquid. But, excuse me, can we pull up the scoreboard, please? How many kills does ZywOo have? Oh, God damn it! What do you mean he only had 3 kills? On the T side of Dust 2! ZywOo went missing, and we couldn't do anything about it! I mean, I'm actually crashing out, dude. Are you kidding me? This might be the worst map I have seen Twist play in several years. Maybe in his entire career. 4 kills, Twist. Please, dude. You're so good at the game, Twist. Why? The only reason this game wasn't remarkably worse was because JKS Ultimate and Yekindar managed to help us win the only 3 rounds of the game on the CT side. But oh my god, dude. Okay, fair play. Flames was amazing. Flames had not been good in this event so far, but he went thermonuclear on Dust 2. So did Speaks, man. But I can't, dude. ZywOo ended this game with 7 kills. 7 kills from ZywOo. And it's still a stomp, bro. And, like, at that point, this series is over. I'm sorry, bro. Like, Liquid did their very, very best on Nuke to make this close. But they still got dominated on the first half, 8-4. That Vitality CT side was incredible still. And it turns out that, you know, you get only a sleeping ZywOo once in a blue moon, because as terrible as he was on Dust 2, was as incredible as he was on Nuke. Like, you gotta capitalize on that. If you guys just won on Dust 2, the series would be over. Nuke doesn't happen. And by the way, we can just ignore that 11 that Liquid put up here, because it's fool's gold. It's fugazi. It's not real. Liquid went on a 5-round run at the end of the game on the CT side of Nuke, the stronger side, where they broke Vitality's economy and managed to string some rounds together. So once again, classic Liquid fashion, they lead you on thinking it's going to be overtime, only to shit the bed on the final round. Oh man, it's so tough being an NACS fan, dude, I swear, it's so tough. Can we just get a Liege back? Can we make an NA super team, please? Like, if the North American scene is gonna die, can we at least just like one last go around and put like Lake, a Liege, Twist, Naf, JT could be the in-game leader. We'll get Sean Gares. No, we'll get Steel. We'll get Steel to be the coach. Here we go. Maybe we can win some tournaments then. That'd be nice. Anyways, I don't have much more to say, dude. I just don't know what to tell you. Like, you can't really take anything away for Vitality here because they're playing with a stand-in, and this is just, oh man, I can't believe Liquid lost. I'm disappointed, and my day is ruined. Anyways, we close out the day with G2 taking on Spirit. Now, once again, this is not an elimination game. This is just for seeding in the playoffs. So you can make the argument that losing here isn't the worst outcome. Obviously, you have to play one more playoff game, which is always more stress, but at the same time, you're not going home. So if you lose, not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. For G2, this is pretty much a peak G2 series. A lot of very close rounds, but at the end of the day, their ability to win the early game and take advantage of the fact they have so many skilled players on their lineup makes them a threat. As long as they don't fall apart in the subsequent full buy rounds, G2 could go toe-to-toe with any team. We've already iterated on this time and time again. Now that being said, G2 have been dominating Spirit in their last few matchups, so thankfully Spirit put up much more of a fight. Honestly, this was a very winnable series for them. And the thing I'll start off first with is Donk, because Donk was the best player in this series, not just by numbers, but by the eye test. Donk was incredible, and frankly, if he was like 5% less than what he was in this series, these games would not have been nearly as close. Shiro also maintains his great level of play at this tournament, right behind Donk, great with the op. He went toe-to-toe with Munacy, and even though Munacy had great flashy plays of his own, Shiro did the work he needed to. He did not by any means lose the op matchup in any explicit way. What's really starting to piss me off about Spirit is the fact that Chopper and Magix are black holes. They are traffic cones. They are a gaping wound in this lineup. It goes with kind of like my broader theory, something I am again working on for a separate video. Hopefully I will not forget to do it this time, but I think we're at the point in roster construction where you cannot have a support player who can't frag. If you have a black hole on your team that's not your in-game leader, I don't think you can be a title contender in the current landscape of CS2. I think that bears out when you look at who are the best teams winning tournaments right now. G2, when they win tournaments, it's off the back of Nico or Munacy playing like a top 2 or better player in the world, and then Malbs and even Hunter contributing high-level impact fragging of their own. Anytime Hunter goes in the negative or doesn't find impact, or Malbs, Munacy, or Nico don't shine at their truest level, that's when G2 can bomb out of games. But when they have those 4 players, and Snacks and Taz calling just enough of a strat book for it to exist, that's when G2 dominate. NAVI, obviously, their roster is filled with just 4 excellent players and the best in-game leader in the world. FaZe Clan, in many different iterations when they were on top of the world, it was 4 extremely good impact players and Kerrigan sacrificing himself as the IGL. We're kind of reaching the point that I think is very similar to what we're seeing in modern NBA basketball. If you're not someone who follows the NBA at all, there's been a very noticeable shift over the last 10 years or so from teams that are reliant on a group of superstar players or super teams to teams that have a fleshed out system of role players to better support their 1 or 2 stars. Right now, role players are the highest value players in the league if you want to win championships. I think we're seeing the similar thing in Counter-Strike. You want to have 2 players that are like your Munacys, your Zywus, your Nikos, but what you really want right behind them are players that can back them up and shore up the margins. Magix just does not do that at a high enough level, and it's holding this roster back. And honestly, I don't even put this blame onto Zontix. He has had rough patches throughout this year, but when he shines, he picks up that third slot very nicely and supports Donk and Shiro in a very nice way. His role was a necessity for this team. Could he be replaced by somebody like Perfecto, and would Perfecto maybe be better? I think that's possible, but Zontix is by no means the problem with this roster in a broader sense than somebody like Magix or Chomper might be. Now, shifting over to why G2 are so good in both of these games. G2 are currently the best early game team in the world. They have one of the highest pistol round conversion rates, one of the highest second round conversion rates, and more often than not, they are turning that into 3, 4, sometimes 5 rounds early on in a half. And when you're winning that many rounds early in the game, it makes the rest so much easier because you have much more economic control, you're not going to have to save as much, and it gives you a much wider margin of error. We'll look towards this Anubis game, where in the second half, G2 won the second pistol round, winning both pistol rounds in this game, but they turned that into 4 straight rounds. And when you consider they started off with a 7-round T-half, that puts them at 11 rounds right away. Now, of course, this is where Donk turns on the magic, and he gets multi-kill round after multi-kill round after multi-kill round, which is insane. His run in the second half to help fight Spirit back into overtime is why they got to overtime. His impact on the T side was transcendent. But the point being that Spirit conceded too much in the early game of this half to be able to try and win out the game. They had to go to overtime, and unfortunately, m0NESY was just transcendent to end this game and shut the door on map 1 really quick. If Spirit were better about converting more pistol rounds against G2, this might have been an entirely different game considering how good Donk was on the T side. And once again, we see a very similar story on Mirage, where on both halves, G2 managed to convert 5 out of the first 7 rounds on the first half, and 5 out of the first 6 rounds on the second half. That means before Spirit can really get established in their economy on either half, G2 has already won 10 rounds of the game. Instead of having to battle late into the game to win a large streak of rounds to close it out, G2 only needed to win 3 other rounds that weren't in this early game back and forth sequence. That's a huge advantage when they can make it happen, and I'm willing to bet, I didn't really have the time to do it today, if you go look back at G2's recent losses, they're going to be games where they don't have this early control. Anyways, kind of a long tangent. The point is G2 were very strong today. This is the G2 we have seen win tournaments so far with this lineup. Let's just see if they can maintain that form. For Spirit, Donk and Shiro are looking great. They just need to focus on putting Donk and Shiro in the best positions to win their rounds. Alright guys, we'll keep it quick with the outro here because the video ran a little bit long despite my best efforts. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff helps out immensely the YouTube algorithm, so thank you for doing it. These videos are powered by Advanced. If you check the link in the description down below, go to their website and browse any of their excellent products and decide to make a purchase, use my code LIONS10 at checkout for 10% off. Thank you to Advanced. I also work with Refrag. Refrag are by far the best self-improvement platform in CS2. If you're trying to take your game to the next level, check out Refrag at the link down below. If you decide to get a subscription, you use my code LION15 for 15% off. Thank you to Refrag. Shout out to my channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, Dr. Cocktor, and Milan Berta. If you want to support me directly, you can do so at the link in the description as well. Also, check out my new community Discord, check me out on Twitch, all that good stuff. I'll catch you guys soon with another recap. Later.